You're listening to Hot 91, the soul of VA. It's Reonna here, and I have the beautiful Adrienne Smith. How are you?
I'm doing well today, Reonna. How are you?
I'm doing great. So I want to start off with you just telling me, who is Adrienne?
All right. So I am a licensed therapist here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm a proud graduate of Howard University. I am a part of the greatest sorority ever, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I'm a dog mom. I'm an auntie. Just all the things.
Great. How many dogs do you have?
I just have one. His name is Dallas. Mm-hmm. So also a fan of the greatest football team ever, the Cowboys.
Oh, period.
Yeah.
My mom would love to hear you say that. So let's just get started with Lee Sparrow Haven. So where did the name come from?
So the Lee Sparrow Haven is three components. So Lee is in honor of one of my uncles, well, two of my uncles. Their address when I was growing up as a kid was on Lee Avenue. And that was kind of one of my favorite places to be, a place where I felt safe. I was surrounded with family and cousins. So I wanted to honor that place. And then Sparrow, because of the mission and kind of the population that we target mostly, I refer to the kiddos that I work with as sparrows. And it goes back to the scripture in Mark that talks about how God looks over the sparrow, so how much more does he care about us? And so that's where that part comes from. And then haven, because a haven is a place of safety, is a place where you can find refuge and healing, but it's not permanent. So the purpose of the Lee Sparrow Haven is to bring you in, meet those needs, help you to heal, find that safety, and then we send you back out into the world. So that's where the name comes from.
Love that.
Yeah.
Very thoughtful. Very.
Yes.
I love that. So what made you start Lee Sparrow Haven?
Yeah, so life experience. So the Lee Sparrow Haven is a nonprofit organization, and we provide special treatment specifically for children and adolescents who are sexually abused. And so just in life experiences, friends, families, things like that, I noticed that there was a prevalence of sexual abuse, especially in the Black community. And in my experience, a lot of times it wasn't discussed, it wasn't reported. And so if you look at the research, it talks about how 1 in 5 girls, 1 in 8 boys are sexually abused before the age of 18. And when I looked at if I could pick any 5 girlfriends, I could count at least 3 in that group. So I know that there was a huge need that was not being met. And so the Lee Sparrow Haven was kind of birthed out of that. When I started grad school, I knew what God called me to do in creating the Lee Sparrow Haven, but I didn't have the who, what, when, where, and how. And just over the years, the pieces have kind of fallen together. And then in October of 2022, the name was the last piece, and we have been rolling ever since.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So what's the mission overall?
So the mission is to provide therapy, trauma-informed therapy to children and adolescents who have been sexually abused. And the rationale behind that is, if we can intervene early and effectively with empirical-based treatments, then we can improve the outcome and the prognosis of these children and help restore them to a place where they can be productive individuals as adults. In my years as a therapist, dealing with adults or treating adults, there's a lot of unresolved trauma, specifically sexual trauma, that continues to carry on into substance use, anxiety, depression. A lot of that is rooted in, trauma, and specifically sexual trauma. So my goal is to intervene as early as possible, right? Because the longer you let a trauma go on, if it was a physical trauma, the longer it takes you to get to the hospital, the worse the trauma becomes and the more detrimental it becomes. So that's kind of the rationale.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I feel like this is really important to talk about, especially since, it's colder now and seasonal depression is at an all-time high right now, especially with the holiday season coming up. Yeah. So I'm just blessed to have you here to speak some truth and to let everyone know like you have a safe space.
Absolutely. And even though we are focused on our children, our little sparrows, we also provide treatment for adults and transitional age youth. So I don't want people to think that because we talk mostly about and treat mostly our children and adolescents, that if you're an adult and you're struggling, that you can't come here. This is a haven for you as well. So I do provide treatment for anxiety, depression, general traumas, grief, work-life balance, life transitions, all the things. Yeah. So anyone is welcome.
And I love that. What is your most cherished moment since starting LSH?
I think my most cherished moment was when I got my first client. It was when I got my first client because, you know, like I said, this is something that God purposed me to do, and I kind of had the vision for it back in 2011. And so to see it come to fruition and all the work and dedication that it took to help get everything established, working with my board of directors, to see like that first kiddo come in and actually be able to execute what I was purposed to do, it was amazing.
Do you still keep up with this child?
So no, because as therapists, our job is to work ourselves out of a job, right? And so unfortunately, or fortunately, you know, once these individuals are in a place where they're ready to take on the world on their own, they don't need me anymore. So if I see them from afar or something like that, from a confidentiality perspective, of course, I'm not going to say anything and, you know, disrupt that. But, you know, I can just kind of like, oh, look at my little sparrow fly. So,
yes,
yeah.
That's probably like the most amazing feeling.
Yes.
Especially because, one, they had an impact on you and you had a bigger impact on them.
Absolutely. And to see these things come into fruition and just the traction that the Lee Sparrow Haven is gaining, it really confirms and validates that this is what I've been called to do. Exactly. So I'm super excited about the journey.
Yes. So what made you want to become a therapist?
So life experience, actually. You know, when we go back to talking about how the Lee Sparrow Haven was created and the origin of it, life experience. You know, things happened to me in my life that made me ask the question of, okay, God, what was the reason these things were allowed to happen to me? And through my own therapy, through my own treatment, through my own journey, at the end of that, he was like, so you can go back and help others and show them that they can be healed, right? And so that's where it comes from. And once I got that, you know, I went and applied to graduate school. The door opened. I got in, finished that. Went to apply to become a licensed clinician. Got that. Like the doors just kept opening and opening and opening. And so again, these are just things that continue to confirm and validate that this is what I'm supposed to do. I thought I was going to be a doctor, honestly. But, you know, they say you want to make God laugh.
Right.
Tell him your plans.
Exactly.
And so, you know, this makes sense as well as I reflect on my life and just the different encounters I've had with people, that this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Your calling.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And it's a great place to be.
Exactly. So do you have a team?
Yes. So I have a board of directors. I'm the therapist that provides the treatment currently. But I have a team of 6, my board of directors. So Chayla McIntyre, Joshua Clay, Ronnie Beasley-Ladette, Amanda Rogers, Tyranda Boone, and then myself on the board, Adrienne Smith. And then I have my clinical consultant, Paula Harrison Hill, who is a proud graduate of Norfolk State University.
Hey,
so, yes. Yeah, so it's us. And then, of course, I have an accountant that works with us to do like programming and helping with, raising funds and things like that. So Edwin Childs Jr.
Nice.
Yes.
So I seen on the website that you were motivated by the quote, "It is better to build strong children than repair broken men." So can you explain why that quote resonated with you and motivated you to start Lee Sparrow Haven?
Absolutely. So it goes back to trauma, right? And so I like to use the analogy because it's easier to picture physical trauma than emotional or mental trauma. And so, there are a lot of people who have been through things and they think time heals all wounds. Let's just, you'll get over it, that type of thing. And that's not realistic. That's not the truth. Mm-hmm. If you fell out of a tree and broke your arm and you didn't go and get it reset, that arm might still work, kinda, but it would be bent. You probably wouldn't have full range of motion, that type of thing. The wise thing to do would be to go to the doctor, let them set the arm, and then let it heal properly. Now, you can go without going to the doctor, and it can be kind of bent up, and decide later to go to the doctor. But where they're going to have to do that arm for you to properly heal, they're going to have to break it, right? So you're going to have to go through that pain again. And so with the Lee Sparrow Haven, what we strive to do is prevent the person from having to be broken again. And life tends to break us when we have trauma. It makes us more susceptible to breakings. And so if we can, as children, because they're more resilient, they haven't had as much life experience, can intervene then hopefully as they go into their adult life, they don't have the risks that adults who go untreated have.
Okay.
Yes.
Because when I seen that, I was like, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because,
go
sorry.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
Because a lot of people think that they can deal with their trauma alone, but it almost makes like what's the quote? A broken person breaks others. Like I see that a lot with people that have trauma, whether that's, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse.
Right.
And then they tend to have those same feelings towards other people, and then when hurt people hurt other people. That's like what I was thinking.
Absolutely.
Yes, hurt people hurt other people. And so I really think that this Lee Sparrow Haven, so I keep saying foundation, Lee Sparrow Haven is a good avenue for people to just have a safe space. And I feel like that's why I wanted to have you on my platform, because people don't know that there's places like this out here, especially in this city. And I really applaud you for allowing people to come in and tell their story and making them feel comfortable.
Absolutely. And, because child sexual abuse is so heinous and is not the child's fault and is not something that occurs in a vacuum. Like the entire family, our communities are impacted by this because we are the building blocks of the community. We also strive to remove any barriers that would prevent that child and that family from getting the service they need. So as a nonprofit, we accept various forms of payment. So, both commercial and public insurance, so Medicaid, self-pay, sliding scale for people really in need. And we're also looking for donors who will contribute to the Lee Sparrow Haven and become friends of the Lee Sparrow Haven to help so that we don't have to turn anyone away, because we don't want to turn any child away and prevent them from getting that healing that they need, because they can't afford it. That's not fair to them. Right. They've already had this unfair situation happen. Why should they have to suffer twice because a need isn't met?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So why do you think that a lot of children think that it's their fault?
That is a great question. Because they are children. And here is this adult, 90% of the time someone right?
Yep.
So a family member, community member, coach, teacher, whatever. And so as children, we look to these adults as being the authority, as being the one who knows, who has the moral compass, who knows right from wrong. And so if this thing happens, then surely I must have done something wrong to create this situation. And then we have to look at conversations that happen around children, conversations about child sexual abuse and just sexual abuse and assault in general of, oh, well, you were dressed this way, or you did this, or this little girl is fast, or this, those different messagings that we may not be aware that children are picking up, right? And so I think that that's part of the reason that the guilt happens. So the Lee Sparrow Haven, in addition to just providing the treatment, we also try to, teach kids how to advocate for themselves and try to empower them to be able to speak up. We also work to empower the community, the parents, the families, to advocate and empower them against child sexual abuse by providing workshops and different events to help them. What do I look for? What are the signs? How do I help a child if I suspect it? How do I behave to not scare the child into being quiet? Because sometimes when you hear this kind of stuff, it can take you aback. And so if your reaction is viscerable in that moment, it can sometimes scare the child. Ooh, I said something wrong. Let me backtrack or be quiet. So those are just some of the things that we strive to do at LSH to make sure that the kids know it's not your fault.
Right.
It's no one's fault but the person who did it. Hard stop.
You're the innocent one in this.
Absolutely.
And it's really heartbreaking to see kids blame themselves because they don't know, like, why me?
Yes.
Why was I targeted? Right. It's just not fair for the child.
Right. Absolutely.
So what are some signs that parents should look for?
Sudden changes in behavior. Like if your child is usually an outgoing person and they're just quiet all of a sudden. For younger children, bedwetting is a sign of trauma. Inappropriate behavior or conversation, like a kindergartner, first, second grader, knowing things about sex and acting out things or making comments that are not appropriate for a child that age. Like, how do you know that? And so when we talk about, again, that narrative of, oh, this child is fast, as a therapist, I'm thinking, where did they pick that up from? Exactly. Because children are not fast. They're exposed to things that their brains are not able to navigate, to understand, to comprehend. And again, that kind of leads to the dysfunction of trauma. So those are some things to look for.
And a lot of it is like, it's learned behavior, you know?
Absolutely.
I really dislike when I hear people call kids fast.
Yes.
Because they don't come out the womb knowing about this stuff.
No.
You know? It just seems so degrading. And people like to ignore, like, oh, it's because they seen us watch this show and they heard these conversations. I know. A lot of it has to be something that they actually experience for them to know. Maybe it's not like all cases. Maybe it is because they sat down and watched some TV shows with their mom and they're like, oh.
But that's something to talk about because what are we exposing our children to, right? So we have to be mindful. We have to be guardians of these children as well, of what we're exposing them to, because that could be something that they pick up on, right? From something they see their parents or people around them do, say, watch. So all of that, can contribute to children displaying behaviors that are not age appropriate. So we have a responsibility as well to help protect these children.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And we see this a lot. I know a couple teachers that they see this a lot in the schools. Like, especially with like all these shows. So when like these kids do experience that type of trauma, they don't know it's trauma because they're like, oh, I seen it on TV. So, him doing this to me or her doing this to me, it's like, oh, that's normal.
Yeah. And so that's one of the problems I have with people saying like, oh, well, he was okay with it. She was okay with it because children are not capable of consenting.
Exactly.
Their brains are not developed enough to truly understand the ramifications of what they're engaging with. So I don't care if you did get consent. It's still not a code because you as an adult have a responsibility to protect that child.
Exactly.
Right? And so what is getting consent from a child as an adult?
Right. And how are you asking for this consent?
But that's just, take my clinical hat off, that's weird.
It is.
And it's wildly inappropriate. So I don't care what the circumstances are around these interactions with children. It's not okay, and it's not the child's fault. So kiddo, I don't care how old you are. I don't care what you thought you were getting yourself into or wanted to do. It is not your fault because it is not. The adult should have known better.
Exactly. Especially now that it's holiday season and a lot of these cases start to spark up around this time during these family gatherings. So what should parents do when they are inviting a whole bunch of adults into the household during these holiday seasons to protect their children?
So I think that it's a couple of things. Having conversations with your children just in general about what is appropriate as far as like interactions with other people, not just adults, but children, because child-on-child sexual abuse is a thing as well. So what are appropriate places and actions to be with individuals? What is an appropriate touch, like a hug or a kiss on the cheek from your auntie? What is inappropriate all the time? And then if these things happen, okay, here's what we do. You can come to mommy or daddy or a trusted adult, and this is what you say. And know that I'm going to be here for you if this does happen, because it's not your fault, and I want to make sure you get the help that you need if you're hurt.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that we can do to help protect our children. And then also just being mindful of who's around, making sure the kids are being monitored. That type of thing is also helpful around the holidays.
Yes. I seen a TikTok where this woman, she was like, holiday season is coming up, so she placed like baby monitors all over her house. And I'm like, it was like, yes, that's smart, but it's also just sad that you even have to do that.
Yes, and going back to talking about adults who were abused, who never told anyone or never dealt with it, part of trauma, it can make us hypervigilant. So I'm not saying that she specifically was doing the most, but sometimes when we don't deal with our own traumas and we don't heal, we can impute our trauma on our children, right? And so this is why we as the adults, as the parents, need to do some introspection as well to make sure, okay, am I in a good place? Are there things that I haven't healed from, so that you can take the blinders off and see things clearly for what it is, and you can be there to protect your child as best as possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, to end this off, where can we find Lee Sparrow Haven? Website, location? Is it virtual?
Yes, so you can find us everywhere. So we are currently telehealth only. And so you can find us on social media. So we are on Instagram, Lee Sparrow Haven. We're on Facebook, The Lee Sparrow Haven. You can also go to our website, www.theleesparrowhaven.org, or you can shoot us an email, so connect@leesparrowhaven.org. All of those methods are great ways to get in contact with us. Like I said before, we are looking for donors to help sponsor and contribute to the organization so that we can continue to provide these services for everyone who is in need. And then also our phone number, 757-828-6301.
Perfect. Do you have any last words for the audience?
Time does not heal all wounds.
Yeah.
I know that's a common statement, but that's not the truth. Time and work heals all wounds. Will you be the person you were before these things happened? No, you're not the same person. But you can still be a healed person, and you can still be a whole person, even though it doesn't feel like it right now.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate this. Thank you for giving us insight and knowledge for our audience, especially people that have dealt with the same situation that you and all your clients have dealt with.
Absolutely. And, you know, like I said, I am here not just to provide the treatment, but to help empower our community. So if there is a need for me to come and provide education, resources, speaking, workshops, whatever the case may be, please feel free to reach out on any of those platforms that I mentioned, because we can't do this alone. Like, we have to come together to protect these children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.